Welcome to The Art of Growth. This is Jim Zartman, and today I get to have a fascinating conversation with Joel Hubbard and Hillary Kay. Joel had something on his mind, walked in, and we got into this conversation, and just great stuff came out of it. I think everyone's going to learn a lot through this conversation about scarcity. But we really explored this topic, I think, pretty thoroughly. So let's go ahead and jump right in.
So I've been thinking a lot about scarcity mindset and where it shows up. And one of the questions I ask myself is, where do I find scarcity? And then I was also thinking in terms of people have said, Joel, you're super generous in certain areas, right? But I know that I'm not in other areas. I know that I'm not a giver in these other areas of my life. But for some reason, in certain ways, I can be very giving, very serving, endlessly, even to the point people say, wow, that's sacrificial. I can't believe you give up your time that way and do this. And yet when it comes to something like, help me do this project over here, well, I am not as interested in doing some projects with people as much. So that's where I started thinking about scarcity and where that shows up, because there's a sense at which when I'm doing something that's, say, a project that involves a lot of details, that's where I feel very little resource internally. It's like, this is exhausting. This is going to be difficult. And I think if I were to look at how my energy flows throughout the day, there are areas where when I'm having to do something in that space, I don't find an abundance of energy. But then if I'm to do something like, for example, coaching, somebody reaches out to me and needs help. It doesn't even matter if it's a friend, it's not even a real coaching call. Someone reaches out to me and says, hey, do you have a minute? I almost seem to always find energy for that call.
So you always have energy for conversation.
About particular things. If it's a conversation about something that I don't feel resourced in, no, I don't. Like, I'm not aware of it. It's the funniest thing. It's not like I'm aware that I don't have the resource. It's just no, I don't want to, right? But if I tune inwardly, I realize, oh yeah, that's neither something I'm not interested in, or it's something I feel very inadequate in, or just it's just not something I feel like I have an abundance to give in that space.
Yeah. Or maybe you don't have an abundance in that space.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good awareness, but not necessarily an issue or a problem or anything. But
right, it's not necessarily a problem. You're absolutely right. I don't know that you have to be abundant in every dimension.
Well, it definitely can't be in everyone. Yeah. Especially in the ones that are the most taxing to you. Like the things that are most energetically draining, it's not like you... Is that what you mean by the scarcity there? Is the area that you feel like you are going to get drained the fastest?
Well, I think it's that, but it's also that there are places where I find, and I think it's by center. So my head center feels pretty abundant. I don't notice a whole lot of scarcity there.
Ideas,
conversation about things that are life-giving, interesting.
Problems to solve.
I could be exhausted and show up at the gym, right? And I'm just like, okay, I am exhausted, but I'm going to work out. I'm going to do my thing, right? And that's good. My body likes that. It wakes it up. But if someone comes over and there's something really like a great conversation that takes place, I find myself having an abundance of energy in that space. I mean, it's reflective. I can look back and go, wow, I just had a 20-minute conversation with somebody while working out about something that's very interesting. And whatever reason, I wasn't tired in that moment, but before or after, I might be feeling the fatigue.
Do you think it's more center related or instinct related? Because I'm hearing a lot of, you're talking about the head space a lot, but in that I'm hearing a lot of that sexual energy as well. Like when you're finding connection with someone, or if someone wants to engage in a conversation with you, or if you're helping someone, or if you're going deep on a topic, like even the problem solving, if you're helping someone solve their problem. Because I was just thinking as you were talking, I don't know if I actually feel it in a center, but I feel it in an instinct. I feel like those self-preservation activities, for me, I get depleted there super fast. And I always am worried about that. Like that's where I see scarcity, or like scarcity of energy. I'm trying to think of other resources, but my mind just keeps coming back to energy gains, energy depletion.
Well, let's take for example, so the 7's core fear is pain, right?
Yeah.
Emotional pain, or it's more like a sense of deprivation or negativity that's going to suck me down, rob me of energy of life. In the very low tolerance that I have in that space, because there's a sense of which I don't have enough. And I believe that every type at the existential whole has that sense of like, I don't have something that I need.
Mm.
And where that scarcity shows up. So if you take all 9 types and you were to look at, a type 1, a sense of goodness. There's a lack of the sense of goodness. It's scarce inside them.
Mm.
And it's not something that gets replenished easily. It's something that is, I'm working at not feeling the pain of that, the emptiness of that. So there's a sense of which I don't have something that I need. I think it's true for all 9 types. And so when you're in that space, and whatever center that is, coupled with, I think your point about the instincts is spot on. I think you feel that more of like, I don't have what I need in this space.
Well, actually, hearing you say that makes a lot of sense to me as I'm thinking about like success and achievement for me as a 3, and doing things to achieve and get that to the next level. I do feel that in my body. And sometimes I don't think I have enough to get to that next level.
Mm.
And like I literally don't have energy in my body to do it anymore. And that's when I pull back. I mean, that's when I think that I don't have enough. That's when in my body I literally feel weak. I feel fatigued. Even if the task itself doesn't require me to move.
Yeah.
Even if it's sitting at my desk and trying to finish a paper or, whatever, that sense of fatigue, like I can't get there.
Yeah. I'm trying to zoom out and say like, name the thing that we're trying to name. And so because what I'm hearing right now is I'm hearing you talk about what do I know I have access to energy for at any given point in time? Where is it easy to draw up energy? What is going to cost me the most energy, and to where I feel like I'm going to get depleted the most quickly?
Yeah.
What you said reminded me of, I've had this conversation with clients where I talk about the area you'll probably get exhausted the fastest is if it calls up your repressed center and repressed instinct at the same time. So like we talk about how the body types and the head types, they tend to do this balance between think about what to do and do it. And they can be the most removed from their heart and the emotional space. And that can feel taxing when they're called upon to use a lot of emotion or to respond with a lot of emotion, or being in a situation where they're experiencing even a lot of emotion. And for heart types, they do this heart-head loop, and they can get most removed from the body. And so that can be the thing that is draining, or I can forget to go to, or I can forget to like engage and care for. And then I get depleted because we're all using our bodies regardless if we're tapped into them. And so there can be that removal. And I was thinking about how the thing that I felt the most exhausted by was when I was trying to work with my mom and the family about getting my dad into the nursing care as he was, near the end of his life. So I was having to do a lot of self-pres thing, which is my neglected instinct. It was paperwork, and I was meeting with lawyers, and I was trying to understand numbers, which is not my strong suit. And it was all around this emotional topic. So like a 2-hour meeting there, and I felt just like gone for the day. I just felt absolutely spent. So I don't even know if it's like a scarcity as much as like maybe it is. And I would love to have a greater capacity for that. But at the same time, I can feel where I know my limits there. When you were talking about the one with the type, I feel like the limit of like the body is the one that sneaks up on me. And I'm not sure what that's about, but as you were describing that with the one and the goodness, I feel like a key thing for me is like energy and engagement. And like, I am the guy you call to help you move, like I've got a lot of, I feel like endless physical energy, but that's the one that sneaks up on me. And when it does, then I'm surprised, then I'm like really angry, and then I'm emotionally depleted too. I'm mentally depleted, all of that different stuff. And when I work by myself for a long period of time, I end up losing a lot of motivation. But when the three of us hang out, like all of my energy returns to like, go after a project or something.
And I think that there's a certain mechanism that there's the loop that we do that is a loop that gives us, that stimulates us or gives us energy or keeps us moving forward, keeps us going after things. So, you mentioned the two centers that oftentimes pair up. For body types might be head, heart. It might be body, head, right? And for head types, it's head, body. Heart types, oftentimes it's heart and then head. And they kind of serve as an energetic loop. So, if you can imagine, certain types have said, heart types have said to me, I feel like my energy push tends to be from a place of shame. Like, I need to be doing something. I should be doing this. And so that keeps me going. So there's this conversation that takes place between the heart center and the head center. And that's a type of energy and a type of movement, and not necessarily great energy, but it keeps the system going. And on a positive side, it's not negative energy. On the positive side, it's a good thing. It's like I desire to do something that brings value or brings people help, and I want to serve them. I want to make people feel special. Those kinds of things then involve the heart and the head in a way that creates a positive energy loop, right? But where the depletion comes from is you're being invited into an area that does not have that loop happening. So now you're in your body, say, as a heart type, or you're in your heart as a body or head type, and you're finding yourself going, I don't have the bandwidth in this space. I don't have the energetic output in this space to stay here very long. It's not a bad thing. We're just saying, I'm just noticing and observing, like, in myself, wow, do I have a small amount of energy in this space and low tolerance for certain things that other people seem to have higher tolerance for in that same center. Like, I can't do negativity. Emotional negativity drains me almost instantly. And I can feel it if I walk into a space where there's negative energy and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to be here. And so I can recognize how, that's coming from a place of, I don't feel like I have enough, and whatever it is that I have is being robbed of me. That's my personal experience of it. I'm curious about your experiences of it.
Well, you're nodding your head, and he's talking about like the shame keeping you going. I'm like, well, I want to hear this from you.
Okay, so the one thing that I just realized, it just dawned on me that my heart and my head overcommit my body. I am in a constant state of overcommitting my body because my heart is what guides me to want to do. And then I go to my head to figure out how to do it.
The plan, yeah.
But I never ask my body, do you have enough to do this? Like the perfect example of, like a friend asking to coach, or advice. And yes, I'll do this. And then, yes, I'll help my mom market this random business. Yes, I'll, over here and do that because my heart wants to. And then my head, I'm like figuring out how I can help here and get that approval, right? Goes back to that motivation of approval. Get that approval from my friend. Get that approval from my mom. Get that approval from a client. Yet my body is like, what the hell? You didn't ask me permission. You just went in and did. But here, I could just add another thing. Oh, I feel like that person needs me. Sure, I'm going to go figure out how to make that happen, but then I never check in. And I will do that until my body literally stops.
But when your body speaks up, though, what happens? When your body speaks up and you're in your body, do you find any place of, boy, this is exhausting. Like, I don't find the kind of energy that I do when I'm motivated by my heart's desire to bring value to the world. And then my head's capacity to plan and make that happen. And then enslaving the body to make it do what it is that the other two are working out. I
mean, I feel like it's just overall fatigue. And it hits me like a brick. Like there's no warning sign
to
it.
What do?
And I freeze.
So you do stop?
No. I freeze mentally. it's like this, my body is keeping going, but then my head cannot figure out how to stop.
So the head is the first thing that falls asleep
I guess.
when you get tired?
Yeah. I get insane brain fog. I get like, it's almost like I'm walking in a tunnel and I'm doing and doing and doing, but there's like, starts to feel like I don't have a purpose. I'm just doing to do. My body like goes on autopilot almost, but there's like this fatigue. Like it's like you're walking through mud and my brain then feels like mud.
Your heart center as a 3, and this would be different, say for a 4, that's and for a 2. But as a 3, your heart is awake to certain things, asleep to other things. Where is the scarcity in your heart center? Where is the abundance in your heart center?
I think when I am trying to gain the approval of someone, if I know that I have to work for the approval, there's abundance because I will kill myself to get there.
What is the fuel?
I don't know. But I think I'm wondering if that's where the shame comes in.
Like shame is a fuel?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
That's such a weird one for me. I'm loving this. I'm just saying it's like weird because it's not intuitive to me, right? As a head type. So this is curious. So tell me, like, if you're moving towards the abundance, you're saying there's an abundance in that sense. Is there a hopefulness when you're moving in that?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted to move a little bit away from shame because I'm not sure that that's entirely shame. It doesn't sound like it's the entire thing is shame. It sounds like there's maybe a mixture of, in part, there's like an eager hopefulness, like I can do this. I can earn this approval. I can achieve.
Yeah, but it comes from a place of I don't want them to be ashamed of me.
What's the payoff? Because the payoff can't be a lack of shame.
The payoff is admiration. That's the payoff.
Does it feel like when I have admiration, it silences the voice of shame?
Mm-hmm.
But is that the only motivation for you is shame? Or is there a high side?
I think there's a high side.
What is that?
Being proud of myself.
Mm-hmm. Is there abundance there as well?
No.
Okay, so that's where the scarcity might show up.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about that with the heart types, is that the ability to absorb it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's not just to achieve or connect or all that. The capacity to absorb is the thing that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when you were describing that, and I'm thinking about this abundance scarcity thing, what came to mind is abundance, and maybe it doesn't fit, but what came to mind, abundance is the thing where you give your energy to it and it's returned to you and you actually can feel like proud of yourself. And the scarcity is the thing I give my energy to and it dissipates, where we've talked about that before. When you pour yourself into something and it doesn't feel like it returns to you.
And what you had started to say about this, which I think is a really important point, is the ability to actually take it in, the metabolizing of that which you need. So that's where the abundance or scarcity shows up too. It's like if you're capable of metabolizing the very thing you need, then there is this reciprocal kind of energetic thing that happens, a loop, right? So you're putting, let's say for you as a 3, you work hard, you achieve. And then you gain the sort of atta girl, the admiration, the thumbs up, and you actually metabolize that. Right, you gave a funny look when I said that. It's like, so what's that about?
Because the second I get oh, wow, you did that? I'm like, yeah, I did. And now I'm going to have you tell me that again because you're going to be so shocked that I'm going to get to a higher level. It's not fuel for me. Well, maybe it is fuel, but it's like, I don't metabolize it. Like I know that I don't metabolize it. The only like affirmation or acknowledgement that I metabolize is when I'm able to give it to myself.
Meaning like how? How do you give it
like
to
when
yourself?
I'm like, wow, Hillary, you did that. That's pretty cool.
And that self-talk works for you?
Oh, it 100%. If I can get, that has been my growth pattern.
Okay.
I have had to say, I don't care if people are proud of me. I am proud of myself. I achieved what I wanted to achieve. I admire myself for doing that. I admire that I pushed through those obstacles.
And you feel it metabolize
and
internally?
I do.
Yeah.
It's like, because it comes from internal.
Yeah.
It's the internal success. It's not the external success.
So that's beautiful. So it's more of a generating of, well, I don't know, but there's something of a reciprocal nature to it, at some sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the sort of it's already present within me as opposed to something I'm trying to chase and pursue.
Right. And not like in the moments where I'm proud of myself first, and then other people say, wow, that was really great. Then I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, that's the right order, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where it's like already inside as opposed to something you're pursuing externally.
Yeah.
Which to me, that is scarcity mindset. It's like, I don't have it. Because you can see scarcity mindset even in the financial sense where somebody has made their millions. If they have scarcity mindset, does it stop?
Nope.
Does it get to a place where they say, oh, now I don't need to worry about a thing?
Yeah.
For some, yeah, but for a ton of people, it doesn't work because it's a mindset. It's like the sense of which I don't have what I need internally, so I'm still pursuing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the need is neutral. The source is not.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think that you're saying right here. And I've seen this
really
for
good.
myself too. It's like the need for the approval is it's a neutral thing. And I think a lot of times people judge themselves for the need. And this is something that I've been passionate about with heart types recently is like the need for the external voice, but not shaming themselves for it because there's nothing wrong with needing it. But then I like what you're saying about the capacity to absorb it is linked to changing the source to this is something that I cared about because you're stating in that moment, I am living in integrity with my own values. And that is what is feeding me. So my need is actually felt instead of some kind of like proxy fulfillment that doesn't quite do it because you've changed the source, which changed your capacity to absorb.
Yeah.
So I think that changes the whole conversation from like, does it happen in a particular center? I think it's true that there are centers where we feel more abundant in, but that there are aspects of those centers where they're never satisfied. Like in your case, the sense of self-worth that's comes from, that's very much a heart center kind of thing. It's just like, I don't feel that until I pursue it and achieve it externally to me and someone gives it to me. So that's the source. And then when you change the source to it being, I think I did a good job. I think I'm successful. I think I achieved. And then it turns it from something that's always being pursued to something that is more generated and also reciprocal. I don't believe that I don't believe in the extremes of like you generate everything yourself.
Sure.
And you're an island. You can generate your own happiness. You can generate your own, everything is generated by you. I don't think so. But I do think that you have to have something in order for it to grow by getting the water, as it were, from external to you. And that's the reciprocal. That's biological. I mean, that happens in nature, is that we are part of a system and the system's part of us. And if it's done right, then there's a metabolizing and a growth.
Yeah, because you're a participant with it as opposed to it being an entirely external thing that you're trying to go to.
Right.
Yeah, but when you're participating with it, you have a better capacity to absorb.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be curious though, because that in my head is very logical, like what we just talked about, because I experienced that. But what is it like for you guys like if you think about because we got down to my primary center, my motivation, right? And that I had to flip the switch there. What is that? What is it like for you guys in the different centers?
It's definitely difficult because when I think about if I was to name it it's not really the need to be strong. It's the need to not be weak. And I can never actually achieve that. And so it is something that is always like out of reach when that is the focus. But when it goes from power to empower, that's when I feel like I can absorb more because, again, it's participatory. Like I feel strongest when I'm giving it away and seeing other people thrive. And I don't know if that's connected to my social as well. Like, this is the first time I've ever really thought or said some of this stuff, but yeah.
Like, are you taking it from your internal to the external?
Yeah, I'm linking the two together, and then it doesn't feel so isolated. And it doesn't feel like I just have to, it's something I have to do. When there's a lot of pressure, I think that's when I end up in that with more withdrawn, and I just kind of close myself off, and then I just feel like I have nothing to give, but I don't know that I am able to name it that well yet.
Well, let's look at let's do a comparison, because the heart center is reciprocal in the heart sense of like,
yeah,
I need your feedback because it's helpful to my own sense of identity.
Yeah.
I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's, again, we're thinking in terms of all things that are true in a spiritual sense are also true at a biological level. And all things biologically are part of a system. The system's part of it. That's how it works, as we just said. When we use a body type, you pick up things much more through the body center. So you are affected, even though you don't want to be affected.
Yeah.
You are affected by things.
Yeah.
And so there is still a part of the system in a sense at which there's something happening in a reciprocal way. Do you know what that is for you, the reciprocity piece for you as a body type? When you empower people, what comes back to you?
My own sense of power. Like,
Really?
I recognize my own power when I'm empowering others.
Wow.
That's when I feel it the most.
Okay.
That's when I feel most energy in my body, like when I pulse with energy, and I even have more access to my emotions. A lot of times my emotions come forward, and like I'll well up when I see someone else thrive, when I help someone else thrive. It definitely works like
When
that.
someone else feels their own power, when someone else feels their own capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me come alive. I get so
interesting.
excited, making someone else more successful, making them more like thrive, living into themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is a huge energy return to me in that space. Yeah.
What's the alternative to that? So you're not doing that. Let's say you're not in a good place.
High amounts of isolation, which sometimes I desire but it's not usually good for me. I do start to feel like my motivation and my energy dropping off. So there's things that are like experientially, low money and bad weather, like when it's gray, awful. Like those are two things where I just naturally feel depleted, because we're thinking about scarcity and all that stuff. And I was literally just talking to a client about that yesterday, and she was a 3 and saying the same thing. It's like, it's like dealing with weather, and like those are two things that just feel so depleted. It's almost like a tall order. This is what I don't like, and I've been working through internally, is like, if I haven't like exercised and experienced the outdoors and been able to interact with people and done something with myself and been creative in some capacity, like it's very rare that I'll hit all cylinders in a day. But that's when I feel like, whew, yes, I feel great. I'm ready for the next day. I'm like loving life. But when only like one of those has been present, I get up the next day and I'm like, ugh. Do I really have
Doesn't
to
it
do
suck
this again?
that we're complex human beings?
Yeah, right.
Well, I wonder this, though. To go back, what you were saying is you feel that energy when you empower someone. So what happens when, the weather sucks? Maybe you didn't get to jiu-jitsu today, but you had a really powerful coaching call and you were able to empower the crap out of someone.
Yeah.
Does that offset that you didn't hit all cylinders?
It's better. For sure it's better. But it's going home with a half tank.
As opposed to, So let me go back to the affected piece. Because the alternative is so if you're doing empowering other people, you're feeling amazing. You feel like that return to you. The alternative is if you isolate, you pull away from that. Does that have something to do with, like, in some sense, if I am with people, I'm also affected by people. I'm affected by people on every level.
Yeah.
When I'm away from people, because it's both and, you can have a great call and you can be affected in a powerful way because you've empowered somebody else.
Yeah.
But you can also be affected in an awful way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go that way. That's the weird thing. So when someone else is in a really, really dark place, I don't absorb it.
Oh, you lucky duck.
I know, right? I observe negative. I absorb empowered and positive more.
That's awesome. But what happens when you are affected? Tell me about that. When you're affected in a way that you don't like it, in what way do you feel when you start to feel that weakness internally that does not, is there a point at which the 8 then says, you know what, I need to be strong on my own and I need to strengthen myself against people, as opposed to I'm empowering people and releasing my strength into them and seeing them rise. So that's what I'm looking at. So what's the alternative? What's the bad habits, that cause you to go, I need to be stronger. I need to figure out how not to feel weak. And it's not through empowering other people. It's through some other means. What is that? What is the habit that isn't empowering people, but is trying to still meet that sense of, I don't want to be weak?
I go into the preparation mode for the next time I'll need it. So it's kind of like the Rocky montage. I got to go behind the scenes and get strong without anyone seeing. So the next time I show up, I can handle it.
Okay.
But it's a very depressing space, but a lot of times it's fueled by a need to know. At least it was in the environment I think I was in. It was like head center that I needed to revitalize. But the thing is, that space is the most disconnected from my heart. That's what's really dangerous to me about that space, is because the energy I come back with is mostly actually head energy, because I can't come back with body energy toward
it doesn't
people.
work in that way.
You can't work. I can't just like go up and start tackling people to the ground as much as I'd like to and fantasize about it. I can't do that, or you get in legal trouble these days. But it's like, what is ground that I can actually fight on? And so I'll do whatever tools I can.
Yeah.
As long as I can feel like I'll be prepared for the next battle.
Yeah.
Which is a mostly imagined one anyway.
Yeah. Well, I like that, because that paints a picture of the alternatives. Like, there's this way of trying not to feel weak, and then there's this way, which that way actually the empowering other people seems like that's more reciprocal in energy, and although it calls you into your heart center for sure when you're doing that. Yeah.
And the thing I don't like about it is it's also very secretive. It's almost like in order for it to feel okay and strong, like no one is allowed into the space.
Yeah.
So I don't talk about it with anybody. It's very individualistic, because it's very much like a guarded thing.
Yeah.
What was that face for?
No, that's so interesting that you said secretive, because when I'm in that reverse, right, where I'm seeking the external, right, my positive is when I can go internal.
Yeah.
But when I'm seeking the external, you just said, oh, when I'm internal, it feels secretive. When I'm seeking the external, it feels manipulative.
Interesting.
So yours is manipulative. And is there a part of it that's secretive for you? Is there a part of isolation that takes place for you?
Only when I've hit complete rock bottom.
Or for you, does it go more performative? You're like putting on the show more.
Yeah, and performance to me is manipulation. You're manipulating the audience to pay attention to you.
Yeah. But you're secretive in the space that you're not being truthful about what's really going on.
Yeah. That's
because I think that's actually true for all of us. I think there's a secrecy and isolation, because I think all humans have a proneness to isolation when we're wounded, when we're affected by things. Even if we become more extroverted and we press the extroversion piece, it's like, I'm going to be even more around people. Yeah, but to what level of openness?
Yeah.
And truthfulness?
Yeah. How much of yourself have you actually silenced to, feed off of that space?
To feed off of that.
Yeah.
100%.
I kind of say to myself, I'm like, that's when I become the vampire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I resonate with that. I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, so your turn.
Yeah, I was like, let's get into that head center.
Yeah, this is fascinating for me because I'm learning a lot here. Yeah, I think for me, the place I would feel the most scarcity is in the place of negativity. So people that are negative, and negative subjects of which I have no solution. If I have a solution, I'm not afraid of anything. It's like, yep, absolutely, let's go. We can take care of this. But I have to have a solution. If I don't have a solution, I'm not going near the thing. Like I'm staying away, and I will avoid, and I will hide from that negativity. But I usually will run to something else. It's not like I just hide. So I'm running towards something positive. And I think the reciprocal part for me is when for me as well, when I'm working with other people, it's not so much empowering as it is with you, Jim, or for you is like turning towards self-talk and like really I'm successful. Like self-talk doesn't work for me at all. Like if I can say, Joel, I tell myself, you have enough. You have enough, right? But it's not like it works at the heart level. It's more of like now go face your demon. Like you have enough resource to face this demon you don't want to face, the demon, the negativity. And when I press into it relationally, that's the key thing for me because I isolate too in the space of negativity. If I have to face something that I don't want to face, I don't want to talk to anybody. And it drives me crazy because, when I'm married to a 6 who wants to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. I have zero desire to talk about it. It's like, no, let's just fix it. Let's move on.
It makes it worse.
It makes it worse. But actually, in truth, for me, it doesn't make it worse when I do it.
But
right?
It feels like it's going to.
Oh, hell yeah. I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But that's the scarcity for me because it feels like whatever I have, the little resource I have in the space of dealing with the negative is going to be gone, and I'm going to be trapped in this negativity forever.
Yeah.
So it's the movement toward people in the space of pain and negativity that when I bring people into that space, that's when the whole thing releases. And it's wild how powerful that is. But, I know it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Like I still have to, it's not natural. So I still have to be intentional about saying, Joel, you have enough. Now go face this thing, bring somebody in with you, talk about it, open up. And when you do, things start to release themselves. Because the alternative for me has been most of my life, which is isolation in the space of my own pain and my own negativity. I don't want to share it. I don't want to talk about it.
But you do feel better when you do.
Yeah.
What does it give you in that space?
Well, it brings me to my heart center. So the part of my heart that's awake as a 7, which again, I wish the literature was better out there in general, which we have to do better ourselves on the literature of the 7. But it's that 7s don't like emotional pain. It's not true. I've talked to too many 7s out in the world who do not resonate with that. Specifically their own, yes. There is no 7 that enjoys their own emotional or will deal with their own emotional pain. They tend to avoid it. But other people's, it's a mix. It's a mixed bag. There are 7s who don't at all, don't like it. And there are other 7s who are kind of drawn to it, like me. I've always been drawn to it. If someone's just struggling emotionally and wants to open up and have a conversation with me, I'm there instantly. I'm there like a 4. I have no problem with that. I love that space. However, if it turns into negativity and you're spiraling and you can't get out of your negativity and I can't help you, at that point I'm probably going to be very quickly out of that.
Well, if they go around the same thing multiple times, right. Like that's exhausting.
Right. And I think that's true for everybody.
Right.
For everybody, right?
I think, but when you feel trapped in their emotion, like you can't problem solve out of it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But so all that to say, like, that part I have no problem with. But I think when I drop into the heart centers, to answer your question, Jim, when I do bring somebody into my own pain, it helps me drop into my own heart center where the sadness, the fear, the loneliness is. And for that moment, I feel not alone. I feel like I'm with somebody in that space. And it's not something I look for. I'm not one who looks for support. I don't relate to that. Some people say, other types besides 6s have said, I love support. I never even think about support. It doesn't cross my mind. So I've never gone looking for support, but yet that is what I need in that space. I'm not alone. And that means I'm not going to fall forever downward because someone's with me. and they're journeying with me through that space, and I come through very quickly. When that happens, it's almost instantaneous that it turns from that sort of like, I'm avoiding this, I don't want to deal with this, to now I've dealt with it, because usually it's someone who pulls me out. It's almost never that I go looking for somebody to help me in that space. It's almost always someone says, hey, what's going on? And then I go, oh, I'm good. Everything's fine. Like, no, that's not true. Like, you're lying to me. What's going on? And then I say it.
And downplay it.
Yeah, downplay it. I talk endlessly. You know me too well. I talk endlessly, circles around it. And then finally when I name it and I just say it plainly, and that person's with me, it's gone. It's just like, instantly I feel so much better.
Are you the person that has to name it, or what if that person with you like named it for you? Does that work, or do you have to name it?
So this will make me sound like an emotional cat. But like, if someone's too aggressive, I'm out. Like I go running. Like if you're too eager, which I've had eager types come to me and go, "Is this what's going on?
Let your darkness out on me.
Yeah,
just come. Let your darkness out on me."
They're a little too eager.
I don't think I want.
But if they name it, if they're gentle, if someone is not slow, but I think more gentle in their approach to like, well, I should say more, it's not for you. And I can tell if it's for you. That's one of the things I can read very quickly is if you're asking for you. Yeah. And if you're asking for you, basically I say F you to me in my heart. I'm like, F you, you're not getting even clear. That's when the stone wall comes up and I'm done. I'm out. But if a person has no sense of which they're doing this for themselves, then I feel safe and I can go, okay, you can name it. And if they name it, they're like, is this what's going on? Then it's a gift. And it's like, thank you for naming the thing that I couldn't name.
And it's okay if you are.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's okay.
Like that. Yeah. That seems to mean a lot to you. Like, so this is like a normal thing. Like, this is okay that you feel this.
Well, because to me, it feels like you're not pigeonholing me or putting me as like there's something uniquely broken or deficient, or you're now going to be treated differently. It was always my problem, and that's also why it was difficult for me to start moving into vulnerability. I did so after a number of years as a pastor, but I didn't for a long time because of that very fear of like, if I do, I know how you're going to look at me. Yeah. I also know that you're probably going to use it at some point. And I don't want you using it, nor do I want you trying to fix me either. Because
that's what I was going to say. Like, you don't want to be a project.
I do not want to be a project.
Yeah.
I don't want all of a sudden it's like people are bringing that up every time they see me. So, we talked about this the other day. I used to have people that did that, literally, because I would open up to some people and say some things, and then they would bring it up 2-3 weeks later. Not as in like a check-in. Hey, how's things going with that? Because if I said, I think I'm doing pretty good, and then they leave it alone, they wouldn't. They would bring it up over and over again and kind of keep poking at it.
Well, being vulnerable with people who have not actually leaned into their own vulnerability is not safe because they don't see themselves. They see like your pain as other.
Oh, yeah.
And oh my goodness, like then I'm worried about you. Like if you've actually looked at your own crap in your life, you're not that worried.
I think you're naming it even. You're saying even better than I was saying it. That's actually more of it for me. If someone does that, like that's the issue that I would feel is like, oh, you're trying to fix me because you're uncomfortable.
In the church world that we experienced, if someone is being vulnerable and the other person is spiritually bypassing, it is the most toxic situation that you can have combined.
So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Because that's what but if you're trying to be vulnerable in certain circumstances with people who are bypassing, then you can't actually have a shared experience at all.
No.
Because they're trying to stand outside the experience and suddenly become an expert about it too when they're spiritually bypassing versus actually like going in this and being able to stand in that space and being like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they also want to keep you in a certain, like, you're this person in my world.
Yeah, and you just got demoted.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't want you changing that. I don't want you,
Well, I kind of do, because then I feel good about myself for a second, but then I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
So you've come off the pedestal, and I went up for a second, but now I feel resentful that now I'm like, I don't know many pastors who haven't had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was never a pastor, but I was in the thick of that world.
Yeah.
And, close to people who were
Yeah.
in ministry, things like that.
I remember sharing something, and I was very aware of the times I was being more vulnerable. And I distinctly remember this one Sunday I said something. I don't even remember what it was, but I shared something pretty openly. One of our church-going people came up to me and said, tried to solve the problem. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, have you thought about this? And have you thought? And in my mind, I literally thought this. I didn't say it. I wish I had. But I thought.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, I can see the response.
Vengeance is always it's always in retrospect.
You really wish you just.
I wish I had done it in the moment. But I thought, oh man, what I wish I had said was, I shared that for you to enter into your own story, into your own vulnerability, not for you to try to fix me. And I could see that they did not want to enter into their own. And what I had done was opened a door, and they did not want that door to be opened. Because it's not just about my vulnerability. It's the fact that I'm vulnerable opens the door to all vulnerability. And that feels very chaotic and messy and scary to a lot of people, understandably.
Yeah.
And so people then want to close the door on that so that things can go back to their nice, tidy order of where the leader who's speaking doesn't have any problems, doesn't have any weaknesses, and telling us all how we can avoid our own.
Well, we've been talking about like scarcity, and I think the energy of scarcity, why it's so troubling, is because it does fall into this category of chaos. Of the two great energies of the world, order and chaos, scarcity can find it feels chaotic because it feels like unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't know if they're going to be okay. What's going to happen to me? What's wrong with me, right? So this is something I think we each ask a different question or tell ourselves a different dangerous story in that space. Because in that space is either what's wrong with me or why did I let this happen? And so then it can bring up all of those most, negative emotions where I do think we rely on our shame to keep us going energetically or our fear to keep us going energetically or my anger to keep me going energetically. And for a lot of my life, whenever I wasn't angry, I was tired because that was just what it felt like.
It becomes more comfortable sometimes living in that than working through it, because working through it's freaking hard. So you know what it feels like. Like I know what it feels like to live in shame. That's natural.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I always like to feel not so much fear as much of that like hyperactive, anxiously, buzz thing. And when I don't have that, then I don't feel energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is, I think, a huge part of the growth process for anyone is learning what fuel am I running on right now. I think as we grow, we start running off of like the better fuel.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I know I will be working on perpetually because it's so sneaky.
Yeah. Because the means to that of weight, like you said, it's not about being for you as an eight. It's not about being so much about being strong, but not feeling weak. And I think that's probably true for all of us. It's not so much like, am I pursuing joy and happy?
Yeah.
Or is it I'm avoiding pain and negativity and sadness? It's like, well, on any given day, it can be more of the I'm avoiding this than I'm pursuing that, right? On any other given day, for you, it could be, no, I am actually enjoying my own strength as opposed to running from my own weakness. For you,
Yeah, it's like I do. It's so funny. Yeah. Like I catch myself saying like, I'm not doing this to gain admiration and approval. I'm doing this to avoid failure.
Yeah.
And to avoid not being good enough for you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's true for all 9 types. When we look at what it is our need is, it's sometimes more about that. I'm avoiding the feeling of that scarcity of not having the thing that I need instead of, moving. And so what happens then is we create this sort of structure, pattern, strategy of how to not feel that. Right. So achieving and, appearing as competent and adapting, social adaptation for you is natural as a 3. there's all kinds of techniques, avoidance of vulnerable emotions is an 8, the 7 avoiding all kinds of things that are hard. There's all sorts of ways that we do that to avoid that. And then there's the shift from that to how can I move more in a way that now is I'm going towards the true gift, the high side of that motivation. And then the need actually does strange. It's what I've been saying to clients over and over again. It's not that you're not supposed to have that need or get that need met. I think it's a wonderful thing. And actually you will at times really feel that need met. It's shifting the early pattern, the early strategy to a new one.
Yes. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today in this conversation about scarcity. As always, the purpose of these conversations is to be a jumping off point where you can notice the patterns in your own life and make notes about it. And if you have things that you learn or you feel like will enhance this conversation, please shoot us an email and let us know. We want to be a hub of wisdom, which takes a community to really do that together. If you don't know your Enneagram type or your instinctual stack, you can take these free tests on our website, theartofgrowth.org. That's also the best place to reach out to us for coaching, and we now have 6-session packages available. You can follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth, and if you think this work would benefit your organization, please contact us about what it would look like to have us come in and work with you in that front. But for now, my friends, may you lean into the knowledge that there is an abundance for you, that you can be attuned to and sensitive to that which will drain you, and plan for it so that you can live from a more abundant place, so that you can be the gift you are to the world and shine the light that you uniquely have to those around you. Grace and growth, my friends.